Hello, welcome back to Charlotte Mason Minimalist. I'm here today. I want to share with you what we will be using this year specifically for science. So this is my Erin Condren planner that I've kind of been teasing everyone with. And I'm going to do a video. We've started some planning for the year and I want to do a video to kind of share that, but I will link that in the comments below. So our main resource that we're using for this year is A Gentle Feast. This will be our first year. I have one third grade daughter. She's an only child. We'll be doing cycle 1, form 1, which I will kind of dig more into the forms in another video, which will be linked below. And we'll talk a little bit about how that works. So for form 1, there is no technical science scheduled. Julie schedules natural history and nature study, which is very similar to what we know as science. I'm using her schedule and kind of doing it with like my own twist to cater to what we want to learn and our goals and my daughter. And that's how I do most of our schooling. So I want to share first how that schedule looks. So if we were on specifically our natural history here, we would have the Burgess Animal Book and Birds of the Air, and then we have also the schedule for nature study in this. So that is how that works. First, I want to talk a little bit about our nature study and what we use. These are our nature study journals. My daughter and I both have one. These are from Julia Rothman. And she has, a lot of you homeschool moms are probably familiar with the nature anatomy, farm anatomy, food anatomy, ocean anatomy. We love those books and we've used them frequently all the way back, going back to kindergarten for my daughter. And we're very visual learners. So whenever we can incorporate something visual into our nature study time, that's great. So in these journals, we haven't done a lot in them, but this is what we'll be using this year. I'm trying to see which one's mine and which one's my daughter's. I believe this is my daughter's. So she has a little ginkgo leaf, but so she has things she likes to do in the summer. This was a little drawing of like the sun coming up. We have lots more. I'm trying to see. Like she did, this was her bee study we did over the summer, and she drew a bee and she kind of labeled with numbers the different parts of it. So we haven't done a whole lot in this, but this is going to be our main nature journal for third grade. This is mine, and I'm going to do, there's another video that I'm really passionate about talking about this topic, is just incorporating lessons with your child, especially if you have an only child, to do them together, to not just, like, I take time and do drawings with her and make it just a part of our life and day. And that's a big, important goal of mine. So like I used this how to draw a bee lesson and did it with her, because doing that makes it feel like it's just something we're doing together. It makes her learning important to her. There are some other, we didn't do a lot, like I said, over the summer, but we kind of went through, and we went and when we did our summer solstice study, and we did like some summer fun. There's a few other things that I wrote in here. So these journals will be used all throughout the year this year, and they're just so beautiful. Look at the cover of that. Like, I loved it. So this, if you're not familiar, is nature anatomy, and this is farm anatomy. Now, the reason you'll see why we love these so much, if there's something we're studying, these illustrations in these books are just so awesome. And they help us too to like, it's a good format if you're doing watercolor with like a Sharpie, like a fine tip Sharpie or a Papermate Flare. There's just great illustrations to copy. And sometimes she even gives activities and things. So we definitely will use these and continue using these like we have when we study nature. So this one's farm, and we don't have ocean anatomy or food anatomy yet. We had food anatomy, but I don't know. I actually think my brother might have that one. But these books are definitely something we will be using throughout the entire year this year, along with these. So let me encourage you. These books are pretty pricey. I think we paid like $15 a piece for these. These were gifts though. This isn't something I would say you have to have these specific books to do nature study with your child. My husband and my daughter bought me one for Christmas, and I bought my daughter one, and none of us knew. Like, I had purchased the one for my daughter. I don't even know that we'd had a conversation about it, me and my husband, and it was just like an impulse buy when I saw it on a deal. And then my husband and my daughter went out shopping for me for Christmas to a local bookstore and purchased me the same journal. So I was like, well, that's perfect for our year. And we started them over the summer this year because we had stuff last year we were using. And so this is what I wanted to share. This is also a perfectly suitable nature journal. This is a previous journal we've used. Obviously, this was a butterfly my daughter drew. And it had like an open front. You could just slide it down in. But these are just different things. Sometimes she would have me write in the date. This was a zoo scavenger hunt I had made up for her. Like, you can do anything in here. There's a turtle that she drew there. So that's how we treated this. Just however, whatever. Some of these are upside down. Obviously, she had like flipped her journal for things when we were, there's a leaf. So whatever she studied. Oh, this is when we did butterflies, and this I think was the chrysalis she had drawn in there. So this was from like first grade, I believe, is when we used this, in a little bit of second, but we started just kind of using some like watercolor paper in second and just putting it into our science binder, but we kind of went back to more of a nature journal format this year. So this is like $2 or $3 in back to school sales at Walmart. Don't feel like, especially if you have a large family, that you need to go out and buy these for like each child. That'd be very expensive. We are using them this year, but I have an only child. So if you have a large family or your budget is tight and you want to do nature study, this is like perfect for that, and we really enjoyed it. So I just wanted to encourage you that you don't need something like this. This is great for that, and it's actually more of a like freedom to just do what you want to do. So what we use for that is Prismacolors, and I had mentioned sometimes we have used like the Papermate Flare. I prefer that more if we were doing like watercolor paper or like a micron pen. That's better for watercolor paper to like fill in a watercolor brush drawing type of art. But we tend to use this because it's like more field work. I like to do our drawings actually in nature. We don't bring them back to the house typically. We do them while we're at the park. So because of that, it's a lot easier to just have pencils and my daughter's nature backpack, and we throw this in there. It's a 10 of Prismacolors. These are a little pricey, but in my opinion, if I was going to invest in something, whether it be journals or Prismacolors, I would go for the Prismacolors. You can do a nature study journal with Crayola colored pencils and it would be great. I mean, you don't have to have this, but if you were looking for like a one or other investment, I would say this and Prismacolors would be a better investment than this with Crayola color pencils. That's just my personal opinion. Like, because these are going to be a more vibrant, realistic color, and they're smoother. They don't break as easily. They are pricey. I believe this has 2 layers to it, and I believe this was about $50. But definitely Prismacolors. You can see these are well used. Prismacolors are one of our favorite resources for art and nature study. So another thing we've used in the past I wanted to talk about today is the Anna Botsford Comstock Handbook of Nature Study. Now this is a thick book. We've used this since preschool. I've read a lot of, especially the beginning, like the teaching of nature study. I've read most of that. And we've done various lessons, but there's a lot of information. And this is meant to be more of like a lesson that is taught. This isn't something you would ever just hand your kid. My daughter actually enjoyed looking through some of it. Like, she liked the pictures. So it was never something specifically in the back. She had a field day looking at these constellations when she was little. And she would sometimes flip through it just to see these constellations. But this isn't something I would ever recommend. Just hand this to your kid. Like, here's a, nature book. I was very overwhelmed when I first ordered this. It was highly recommended, and I got it. I was like, that is a thick book. And I had a 4-year-old at the time, and I was a little bit overwhelmed by that. We won't be using this very much this year. I don't want to say we won't at all, but it's not going to be where we pull our main nature study lessons from. As my daughter gets older, we will probably pull more out of this and do more of like the actual lesson the way it's taught, maybe even in 4th and specifically into 5th and 6th grade, like the nature lessons I would teach specifically from this. There's not a reason that I'm not, other than that we have another schedule we're going with, and I may pull some things. I'm not using this as our main resource is all I'm saying this year. I'll probably use it as a reference, and occasionally if there's something that I really need a specific lesson on how I want to do it, I may utilize this. Now I want to say that this is our main science, nature study, everything curriculum for this year. This Exploring Nature with Children by Lynn Sutton. I will link below how to purchase this. This comes as a PDF, and I have this spiral bound at Staples. So this, I just kind of want to open it up and show you. This is autumn, like this is everything for autumn that you would be learning, and it has a list of everything you'll need resource wise. So I'll just open it up to the very first lesson is collecting seeds. So there's going to be a lesson. It has a little, like just for the parents. Sometimes I read directly from this. Sometimes I don't. It has a nature walk activity. And then there's a book list and a poem. And then there are extension activities, a piece of artwork to look at, and then it moves on to the next unit. So this is how we're using nature this year. How we're doing nature study, not using nature, but doing nature study this year. We're using this. We did some of it over the summer out of here. We did like the summer solstice, the bee study, the tree study. I'm trying to think, St. Swithin's Day. There's a few others we did cover out of Exploring Nature with Children. Just kind of getting out of the house, and we did it in a really relaxed way, just to kind of get the feel for how this works. So in doing that, we realized there's some studies coming up as I was looking through that really focus on astronomy. My daughter's really into astronomy. As I mentioned with the Handbook of Nature Study, she loved looking at the constellations in that when she was young. So I'm kind of using a little spin on this myself and picking like a focus for our nature study for the year. So we are going to follow this. I will say that A Gentle Feast does not follow this according to the exact schedule, because she kind of schedules it to be like you're doing 2 weeks of one topic. That's good, and I understand why she's doing that, but we treat this as almost exactly as prescribed, that we just follow what is that week. And my husband is a park ranger, so we use his park as our nature study place. We live in an urban area in the middle of a large metropolitan city with 1 million people. So we have a nice outdoor area that we can do like our tree study at, but for almost everything else, we go to a local park, which happens to be my husband's park. So we like to follow the actual season and do our nature walk based off of what's actually in here, and just kind of explore different things from that season, and kind of have my daughter notice things that she didn't notice before. Like when we did the flowers through the blossom study in the spring, we actually went to his park and found some wildflowers, but then we also went to the Park of Roses and looked at like the blossoms on the trees. And we've done a lot of different things like that really incorporated what is in our area in our season by using this. And so we plan to continue that this year. But while doing that, I wanted to pick a focus for the year that was really going to be what we focused on more than anything else. Like some weeks might be a lighter week where we're just doing that nature walk, and other weeks we might dig a little deeper. And so that's where this next resource comes in. This is Exploring Creation with Astronomy Young Explorer series, and this is from Apologia. So we will be using this to dig deeper into constellations and stars and the sun and moon and possibly even the earth chapter. So we will not be using this as a standalone science curriculum. We won't be following this to a T. We will not be doing every chapter for sure. So I picked this up off of Facebook from another homeschool mama, and this was a schedule we will not be using because I'm not doing everything in here. So it has an introduction right here. See, like it has, this would be great for somebody who needs a full science curriculum for anywhere from probably kindergarten through 4th grade, maybe even more. I'm not positive on the ages on this, but it's about what it looks like to me. It would be a great curriculum. This is secular, and so I kind of liked that this is not, and you're exploring creation. So I like, that was a really important part of picking this resource up to me. And I won't be using these specific lessons the way they're set up. So what is astronomy? We will definitely, I'll probably pick and choose a couple things out of that to teach. We'll probably do a lot of the sun, because as we go through exploring nature with children, we will be focusing on the summer solstice and the winter solstice and the spring equinox and the fall equinox. And then we'll, so that's like, I want to teach the actual sun as we're going through that. Now, where it has all these planets, I probably won't even touch any of that because we're not going to be studying planets this year. We will eventually study planets, but I'm putting more of our astronomy focus into the stars this year. We may do some of the Earth as it applies to things we're learning and exploring nature. And we will have also like full moon studies and different types of moon studies throughout the year. So we'll probably do some of the moon. And then the main reason I wanted this was for the stars and galaxies section. Now there are projects. This is pulled right open to the stars and galaxies. So in here, there are, sometimes there's a Bible verse. This is definitely young Earth. There are different projects and different journaling ideas and things throughout this. Now, we won't be following any of that exactly. I just love how it integrates the Bible into it. And so this is a resource that was really important to me to use. I didn't necessarily feel I wanted something that was just this, but I wanted something that gave me the ability to teach from my point of view and my belief system, and specifically on something that's really important to my daughter. So see, I love how there's projects and things. So all throughout here, there are going to be projects that we can do to kind of go along to have more of a science feel. Now this has a journal I can purchase with it, and I did not purchase, and I won't be purchasing because I'm not following it according to their schedule. What I did purchase to go along with it is a primary composition book. Now this is K to 2nd. My daughter is a 3rd grader, but I like that it has the lines and the space at the top so she could draw if she needed to. And some of it may actually just go in her nature journal if it's going along with the exploring nature with children. If there's like a project that I think would be a better fit to go in here, we'll do that. But this may actually, so she'll probably decorate this, and this may actually just kind of become, I don't want to say like a free write journal, but a journal that anything extra that's not a typical narration, like it's not a narration notebook lesson, may go in this. Anything that's journaling that is not narration notebook will likely go into this. So I'm not sure what this is going to look like yet. I purchased it thinking it would just be for science, but I don't think she's obviously not going to fill this up for science this year. We'll see where that goes. But this is the other thing. And so I was really super excited about this. I have a ton of these, and I bought a big pack of them from Target a couple years ago. So they're just like a plain, it has staples in the side notebook, and the pages are black. So my plan with this is going to be a constellation notebook for my daughter. And so as we learn about different constellations, she can use you can use a lot of different resources like chalk, but I have oil pastels, and I think that's what we're going to try for this. The lighter colored oil pastels, like a yellow or white, to illustrate the constellations in here. And I'll put probably like tissue, like or tracing paper, some type of tissue paper between these so that it's not rubbing off on the page next to it. So I forgot I had these, and I actually ordered something that was called the Astronomy Main Lesson Book. That's for Waldorf education. I ordered that, I believe, from Rainbow Resources. It hasn't come yet, but those may actually end up on the shelf this year because they're this format, but they're blue. And then the other page has like lines so that you can do writing. I loved that idea, but since she has this composition book and we're going to be nature journaling and she has narration notebooks and she's only a 3rd grader, I think that this is a better format. And then maybe as 4th and 5th grade and time goes on, if she's still really into astronomy, we'll probably pull those out and use them for planets and other constellations, because I know we won't cover every constellation this year, and we also have to do the planets still. And so those may end up being a narration notebook for science down the road. So that is our intention for digging a little deeper into science. Now, the other things I wanted to bring up, I did mention as we go through this, we'll be using these oil pastels. Now I do have chalk pastels, but this is like a brand new pack of pastels. So I'm assuming that this will be the main resource my daughter uses for that this year. And also, anything you find by Franklin Branley for astronomy, or there's a lot of other topics he covers, and like it's a leveled science series. We use those in kindergarten a lot, and then we pulled them off the shelf a lot throughout 1st and 2nd grade. I mean, there are so many that we don't own near all of them, but we have a whole section of our science shelf that is just books that are in that leveled series. Now, this one is not one of the leveled ones, but this is specifically about the Big Dipper. So I just wanted to share this specific book. It's obviously written to maybe a little younger audience, but as we study the constellations, I just thought I'd share this and pull it. It's definitely something that will get pulled back out, and others in this series will get pulled back out. This doesn't have the level on it, but a lot of the books in that series are by him, by Franklin Branley, and that was just something that my daughter has referenced time and time again. So I wanted to share that because I'm sure they're going to be referenced this year as well. Another thing we haven't referenced too much, but it's been on my shelf for a couple years, is Find the Constellations. My daughter's looked through this, but we've never used it. It's a little more wordy, so this is probably more on her grade level this year than some of the younger science books are. And she may still use those books, but I definitely will kind of try and pull some of the information from this. So along with that, I will note over the summer, since we are studying this year, I did another video of what we covered over the summer, and we did cover Greek myths because a lot of the Greek myths come out in astronomy study, and I wanted to have her to have kind of that background. And I used the Usborne Greek myth. It's for like obviously geared more toward my daughter's age. It's not for like an older student. It doesn't have too much. It's a little bit watered down, but I felt like it was a perfect introduction to that, and a perfect introduction for her to understand when we're looking at these constellations, the background of that. So Find the Constellations. This is by H.A. Ray, who wrote Curious George, and I love the colored pencil artwork in here. So there's a lot of explanation. This is an awesome science resource. So this will be, look, $1 thrift store finds. I love deals like that. So that'll be another resource we use this year. So to kind of round out that science and that nature study topic I've really focused on here is what all of this is going to be. I also have this book. It's the Kids Outdoor Adventure book. This, it says 448 great things to do in nature before you grow up. And when I bought this, it made me really think about like my daughter's years. I don't have infinite amount of time with her. So there are so many adventures I would love to have in her childhood. And I've actually read this cover to cover. And so I'm just opening it randomly, but I like in here that it's by season. And so I believe this must just be starting fall here, like autumn. Let's see. Yes. So autumn, this is where autumn starts. And sorry, I need to move the camera there. So I'm just going to start with the autumn checklist. Pick a pumpkin off a vine. It gives you a scale of like an adventure scale to how adventurous that activity is. Some of them are obviously going to be higher and some are lower, and that helps you to understand your level of adventure you're at this stage. If you have 4 kids under the age of 6, you may not be doing these higher level adventures, but if you have mostly high schoolers, you may be able to do some of those, or maybe even a mix. So that's helpful. And I like that there's a challenge. So like this one has grow your own pumpkin and pick it off the vine. We actually did that. We live in an apartment, but we live in a condo now, but last year we lived in an apartment and we actually grew pumpkins that my daughter had got from co-op from a Little Green Thumb class, and they did amazing. And we actually were able to carve those pumpkins and it was a great time. So sometimes there's like a challenge activity that might seem a little bit more in depth. And I like this formatting of this. It's not something you have to do every single thing, but it gives you different ideas and different adventures to have with your children. Sometimes there's like, here's a project. And that's a goal of ours this year, is to have more adventures. Just to go on adventures and to do things that we wouldn't think of sometimes without resources like this. Kind of thinking outside the box in our education. So that's a pretty thick book. And it's a Falcon Guide book. We really, really, really enjoy it. And we've done quite a few things out of it, and we will continue to do things out of it this year. So I wanted to share that. That might not really feel like a science. I mean, it's an adventure book, but you learn science through adventures like this. So that's why I brought it out. It's not necessarily like a nature study book, but it's definitely something that I would say is geared around nature. So this book is scheduled in a gentle feast. And this is what I would consider more of our natural history selection. So everything else I've shared thus far is all revolved around nature study for the year. This is similar, but this is what's called natural history. So you're just learning about specific things from nature and not necessarily going out and finding these things in nature. We're learning about them in this format. So how this works, she schedules, and I kind of want to, well, I did pull that out and show you how she schedules that nature study. So, or natural history. Natural history is twice a week. There's no science at all scheduled. So everything I've showed you is our science. This book, so if she's scheduling this for one day, let's see, Jenny Wren gives Peter Rabbit an idea. So if I look back here and look at what one is going to introduce Peter Rabbit. Or we have Jumper the Hare, the marsh rabbit. These are all different types of animals throughout here. And so she has scheduled all of these throughout the year. And we will use this book all year, once a week. Now, let me just stop and say, if you're even considering this book, or you're a Charlotte Mason fan, or you are somebody who's looking for a good natural history or great natural history science style curriculum, A Gentle Feast is where it's at. I've been looking for something like this for so long, and when my daughter was younger, I didn't feel confident to just jump out and say, we're just gonna go and do this on our own and figure it out. Or sometimes Ambleside Online, I had kind of dabbled in some of that and I would feel really overwhelmed. Julie schedules it for you. So I don't want to say, A Gentle Feast is obviously curriculum, but other than like the language arts portion, it's not that she's like coming up with all these resources on her own. She's just giving you a great schedule and using resources that help you, especially if you're somebody who leans heavily Charlotte Mason. And that is us, and we needed something that was simple and that we could do. And a lot of the other stuff we were looking at, it just wasn't happening. So when we do this, and it's scheduled for the week, there is a video that we're supposed to watch that she has linked, and it's a YouTube video, and it's going to be on the animal that we're studying. So we'll read it. So I will read this to her more than likely at this age. So there's, not too many pictures. She's a 3rd grader. There's some. So I'll read that to my daughter. She will narrate it back, and I'll probably stop. Like, that's a lot of narration for a 3rd grader to not stop. I'll probably stop a couple times throughout it, and then we have this. I actually did not have a mammal guide, and that shocked me. So we have the golden guides, we have them in a lot of different things like birds, wildflowers, but for some reason we have so many guides and there was not one mammal guide. So that was kind of odd. So I purchased this. I just grabbed it off Amazon. I'll link that below, and all of these books will be linked below. So I purchased this from Amazon, and what she'll do is she will narrate and then she will find the animal. So I'm just gonna open, okay, if it's a river otter. So she will find this river otter and then she will read about it and she'll see where it lives. And then I actually found from Afterthoughts blog, I'll link that below also. She had some free printables and she also had some links to coloring book resources if you couldn't or didn't want to use those printables. You could very well just say, draw this in your nature journal. We have so much art and drawing this year. I'm not doing that to my daughter. She loves to do things like that. It's one more thing to add on and to her drawing schedule. And I'm going to leave it at that. Like, I know that we have a lot with art going on this year, so I thought it would be fun just to have this to be more of a relaxed, and we're just going to color and accurately whatever the animal looks like in this guide. Or if we don't have a great picture, I'll just get the iPad out and find it on Google. So that is that resource. Now, another one Julie schedules is Birds of the Air by Arabella Buckley. She has another one that's like a plant life book that is scheduled for terms 2 and 3. I believe this is term 1, and I've only purchased books we're going to be using in term 1. I shared that in another video, but it's because I don't want to buy everything for the year and then not like it. I don't anticipate that happening. But a great thing about A Gentle Feast is you only have to give it one term. You know, you don't have to. She breaks it into terms in a way that the books are kind of split, and so some books will only be first term. Some books will be all year, like the Thornton Burgess, but this one is just, I believe, first term and possibly second. So this is a lot thinner book than I actually had anticipated it to be. And we've read some of the Thornton Burgess animal book bird book over the summer. So this is kind of a great extension of that. We have a bird feeder, like a window feeder, that we have dozens of lovely birds that come to all the time. So this is formatted in just this lesson chapter format, and so it's like birds we know, and there's just different songbirds and different resources. And so the way this works though, again, if you can purchase A Gentle Feast, if you're planning on using any of these resources I've showed today, I know not all of these are going to be scheduled from Julie and A Gentle Feast, but her schedule format has given me the freedom to expand and explore and do the things that work best for us. So using Birds of the Air, she schedules like specific activities to go along with it, like look up this many birds in your local area, or she tells you exactly what to do using this book. So I don't have to question, like, what should we do after we read that? Should I find a craft? Should I find like, a reference to something and do some type of art project, or should she be writing about it? Like, there's no question what I should be doing. And so you can purchase A Gentle Feast using Julie's, like, just the online resources. And if you do that, you will get everything you need. But you can also purchase this guide, which is, I'm a visual person and I needed this. But if you only have the resources or finances to purchase the online guide, it is plenty. And it has like an Excel format that some people actually prefer. You won't get this, and it won't look just like this, but it'll have an Excel format that you can print off or use just online. And everything is linked in that to everything, like language arts resources. Well, you have to purchase the language arts packet, but language arts resources, the schedule's done in there. Just everything that you might need for the year is going to be scheduled in that file. So then there's also a lot of other YouTube videos and just anything that you can think of that you are like wanting to go Charlotte Mason but don't really know how to get there, I highly recommend A Gentle Feast. We tried Ambleside Online in the past. It is an amazing curriculum and I really love the scheduling, but for somebody like me, I'm very visual. And it was really hard for me to decipher the website and to break it down. And as much as I tried, I felt very overwhelmed by it. And there's nothing wrong with it. Like, I actually loved their program and their scheduling, but I think it's more of my learning style. I had a hard time with it. And A Gentle Feast works that out in Charlotte Mason for me, in the Charlotte Mason format for me. She also has lovely stuff in the beginning of this that break down specifically how you're going to be teaching. I've read some of Charlotte Mason's original volumes and I liked that she took just little key parts and broke them down to say, this is why I'm doing this. And that was really helpful because sometimes, even though I've read them, it could be overwhelming to just think, what is the most important things for me to focus on and what should I be doing? And she does a really good job of it. So let me break down now to say, we're doing Birds of the Air, which is her schedule, which will be done in term 1 once a week. I have a couple bird resources I wanted to share just because we are big bird fans in our house. So this one actually came with My Father's World 2nd grade, which we had previously purchased and decided against using, which I'll talk about in another video. But I like these take-along guides. My daughter has quite a few. And I just wanted to show you that this is a barn swallow. You see its nest, eggs. So as we're having to reference things, I like the idea of using this. I have some other local field guides that are more in depth, but for her age, this is really age appropriate that she can look up on her own. Sometimes there's an activity or something to do. We may not do all of those. Some of that may go toward afternoon time. I do have an only child who gets bored. Some of that stuff she may want to look at later. I also have Bird Talk. This book is something I wouldn't necessarily say go out and buy it for a third grader. But I think in like kindergarten, first, second, my daughter loved this. I'm sure it'll get pulled out again. And it's funny because she will be like, she'll hear this, deer, deer, deer. And she'll be like, oh, that's probably that bird. So she just really had fun. They kind of turned all of the different things, all the different bird songs or bird calls and turned them into like, they're actually saying something. And it actually did like work that my daughter would think about it and be like, that's what that is. So I found this to be a really fun book to do with her, and so it's one of our favorites. I definitely won't schedule that this year at all, but I just wanted to share that resource because it's been one of our favorite things that we've used. Also, this is something I actually picked up. If anyone knows me knows I've loved owls forever. Like for the last 10 to 15 years, it's been one of my favorite things in nature. We actually at one time lived in a barn, and we had this like owl when we were working on building it that we were like hearing up in the barn, as it wasn't completely, the windows and stuff weren't in it yet because we lived in the loft, and that was a really cool time. And I think that's when I first got very interested in owls. So I love the watercolor pictures. I love just like the brief descriptions in this book, and I picked this up off of a friend on Facebook. So as a friend that has done like Wild and Free group with us. We will be doing that this year as well. Now, kind of to go on this, I know I have a lot of stuff I'm sharing that we're doing for science, and it might seem super overwhelming. All of this is not necessary, but I just kind of wanted to share what's going to be on our shelf for the year. So this is a resource my daughter has asked to use. I usually ask her, what do you want to do this year? I'm not an unschooler, but I like, and I have nothing against unschoolers. I think it's amazing if your brain works that way, but mine doesn't. And I thrive off of schedule. But my daughter, she really loves pets. And so this is something she had picked up from the thrift store for like 50 cents there. Like, it's a great price. And she asked, hey, can we do this pet science book this year? So this is something I'm going to go through and pick out. Like, if there's a lesson on cats, like right here is one on cat scratching. This is not like a super invasive, like she's going to have to do crazy experiments on animals. This is like just seeing like what your cat's favorite things are. How does the weather affect your pet? Some things are more geared toward other pets. We only have a cat, so I'm gonna like tab the ones on pets, and that's something she'll probably record those findings in that composition book that I purchased. So that's just a fun thing, and I wanted to kind of talk about some of those things I added in this year. That's what I love so much about A Gentle Feast this year, is that it gave me the options and the freedom to not feel like my schedule was so full, because we have used in the past, the main curriculums we've used, I would say, are My Father's World and Sunlight. And both of those are great, amazing curriculums in their season and for the right person for the right time. And we needed something that kind of gave us more freedom in our day, that I didn't feel like we were stuck in a rhythm that we couldn't get out of, I guess. I wanted our rhythm to be more freeing, and I wanted to be like, hey, we want to do a pet lesson today or pet science thing today, we can do that. And in what we were doing before, our day was very scheduled. So we have the freedom to do this year, and I think it's really important to do things with your kids that give them joy. My daughter has consistently talked about that she wants to become a veterinarian. So this is something that will definitely give her joy that I wanted to include this year. So a couple other things. This is one from last year I had purchased to do with my daughter, and we did some of them. I know this isn't necessarily Charlotte Mason-esque because it's paper crafting, but when we covered animals, we did animals last year that were like all around the world as kind of a geography type of unit with Sunlight. And there were some things in here that we may do. She actually really liked these, and she liked doing the detail in them. So as an afternoon project type of thing, like the pond one here, we may do this. You can just like photocopy these on the printer. And I liked that it had spring, summer, autumn, and winter. I just purchased this off Amazon, and I'll link it below. And there's a river. So as we do like more local nature study, we may do some of these. Because last year we did things like, it had like the African savanna and the American prairie and comparing. So it was different habitats, but it was comparing things. So we did this one, the Sahara Desert and the Sonoran Desert. So we compared what types of things were in each one. There were a lot. I thought this was really cool because we do live in the city, and this is like very similar to how our condo is. So I thought that would be something that would be fun for her to do. And it has all just like the local animals. So this is something she would enjoy. Now, as far as an assignment that is like, I'm writing into my guide, that's not going to be what this is. This might be like, hey, we had a lot less on our plate than we thought today, and the afternoon is very free, and she's not allowed to watch TV until after dinner, so I might like copy something from here and let her work on it. It's not going to like take the place of handcrafts. It's just paper, but she likes coloring and she enjoys things like this. So this is something that it's going to be on the shelf and will probably make the list this year. Another one of those things is this. This I actually picked up from the thrift store, but I believe you can buy this or something similar on Amazon, and I'll link that. And this is really the same type of thing, but they're more like focused on one animal. And so sometimes my daughter is tired of drawing, and I wouldn't mind doing some things out of this for those animals. Even with her Thornton Burgess book, if there's something in here that's like an animal we could use, and we would just replace like her coloring sheet. Because I do believe when I was on Afterthoughts, a few of the links were dead, or there wasn't links to every single animal, and obviously you don't have to do all of them, but if there was something that was like a fun thing out of this that she would like to do, I may pull from this for this year. Obviously it would just be like picking and choosing a couple little projects or fun things for her this year, which may, like I said, it's not necessarily a Charlotte Mason type of resource, but I just wanted to share because I'm just being real, and this is something that we probably will use. Last thing I will share is this. This is the National Geographic Book of Animal Poetry, which doesn't seem like science. We used this last year with Sunlight, and we were studying animals all over the world. We're continuing with our animal study this year. So it has poetry from all different poets. So we have our poet study and we have a poetry tea time. This will definitely probably get thrown into either poetry tea time or just as we're doing a specific study. I love their real pictures. This is like really a favorite of my daughter's from last year. So it's not science in the sense that it's like an experiment or a lesson, but it's something that I think she will love doing. It has all of these different animals, so I may occasionally go through, and if I find a poem that corresponds with our Burgess readings, I may just like put a tab and pull it out when we're doing our natural history time, or this will obviously just be on our shelf and we may just kind of read through it during our poetry tea time this year as well. So I just wanted to share that's another thing that goes along with our science for this year. So as you can see, our main theme is animals, nature, and astronomy. Those are our themes for this year, I would say. Nature, animals, and astronomy. And a little bit of bird and owl study thrown in there. So I hope you enjoyed watching. Have a good school year.